Please,
Yeah,
leave me out of it.
suspect me for the
The
work.
usual suspects, Gabriel Spector, Radio Finance is here, alongside suspects of any kind, please.
So you changed it from plural to singular.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought we're in this together.
No, so it depends. It depends.
It depends on what.
On
The
a
usual
number of factors.
suspects on the show. So if you're thinking about hard
Okay,
facts,
if you put it that way.
yeah, if you're thinking about hard facts, who are those
I'll
that you
take that.
suspect that will be on the show?
I'll
Somi and
take that.
Gabriel.
I'll take that.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you've taken it eventually. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into the show for today. We've got quite a number of very topical issues to look at today. Starting with the big three, of course, we're looking at the Electoral Act in the country as we build up to the next general elections, which is about 16, 17 months from now. Well, when we say 16, 17 months, we're looking at timing, talking about timing. There are some people who are proposing that the election time should be earlier than the usual time we have it in the country. So Nigerian lawmakers are proposing non-compulsory use of PVCs for voting, amongst other issues. Members of the National Assembly are proposing an amendment to the Electoral Act to make the use of the permanent voter card PVC non-compulsory for eligible voters during elections. Now, let me take that again so that it is clear. Members of the National Assembly are proposing an amendment to the Electoral Act to make the use of permanent voter card, what we call PVC, non-compulsory. So they're saying, we're proposing that people do not necessarily need to use the PVC to vote. Now, hold on. Let's see what this is all about. The proposal, which seeks to amend sections 18 and 47 of the 2022 Electoral Act, says that since the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, does not recognize the microchip embedded in the PVC, the card should no longer be a mandatory means of identification for voting.
The PVCs should not be mandatory.
Containing a draft of various amendments being considered by the legislature, the proposal instead recommends the use of National Identification Number, NIN, which for several years you and I have been harassed to go and get our NIN. The Nigerian passport also is being considered, or birth certificate, as an acceptable means of identification for voters. These and other proposed amendments were discussed during a public hearing organized by the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Electoral Matters. Remember that the National Assembly is back at work, and they have been holding sessions since last week. Apart from sessions, they've been hosting or having several meetings depending on the committee that you're talking about. So quoting what the proposal says, reads, and I'm quoting here, it says, the use of permanent voter card PVC will not be compulsory since the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, does not recognize the microchip in the PVC. Every registered voter will be able to download and print their voter's card whenever needed. This totally eradicates the issue of buying and selling PVCs, likewise all related offenses. This is reflected in Section 18, Section 47, and the deletion of Section 22. Acceptable means of identification for voter registration have been limited to National Identification Number, NIN, a Nigerian birth certificate, not sworn of age court affidavit. All right? It says Nigerian birth certificate or Nigerian passport, according to the proposal. Now, since the introduction of the BVAS into Nigeria's electoral system, the technology has faced widespread criticism. In several elections, BVAS devices have failed to authenticate voters' fingerprint or facial features, causing delays and frustration at polling units. Other recurring issues include poor battery life, lack of backup power, weak internet connectivity. This one, talking about weak internet connectivity, is more prevalent in rural areas, the hinterlands. This major controversy during the 2023 general elections was the delayed transmission of results from polling units to the INEC Result Viewing Portal (IREV), which raised concerns about transparency. Similarly, many eligible voters could not collect the PVCs due to administrative bottlenecks, long queues, and misplaced cards. Where Beaver's devices failed, some voters were disenfranchised despite waiting for hours, while the late arrival of materials often led to the postponement of voting in some polling units. Opposition parties and election observers have also alleged possible manipulation of results through Beavers or the result upload process, referencing delays in publishing results online and inconsistencies between figures recorded at polling units and those uploaded. Seller.
You say seller.
Okay. I thought you wouldn't get that. All right. So here we are. A major reform being proposed to the Electoral Act, where the PVC is no longer.
No. That's what they're proposing. It's not that it's no longer yet.
It's not compulsory. It's not compulsory.
It hasn't been decided on yet.
That's what I said.
Okay, no, when you said it's no longer.
I started by saying proposed.
My heart boom first. Because even just the method of this, this is me thinking out loud now, is just so scary. So, granted, the joint, is it the joint committee now? What is it that they're called? The committee in charge of electoral reform. Joint Committee on National Assembly and Electoral Matters. They were the ones who held this meeting yesterday. Yeah. And I was really excited when I first of all saw, because a friend of mine posted that he was at this place, and I was so excited. Like, okay, that means that, everything that has been happening at, the stakeholder level, from the CSOs and all of that, because the cry for electoral reform has been one of the biggest cries going into 2027. And I'm like, okay, this is exciting. They are, paying heed to the cries of the people. And there were a number of very, very important people who have been for this push for electoral reform since. And so the electoral bill, I think the amended act is supposed to be Electoral Act 2025.
Right.
And there are a number of things that are proposed, but this was the scariest one because
right.
if the lawmakers are saying, look, there were issues with BVAS and PVC and all of that, they took their time to outline some of the challenges there with it. I would have thought that they would have considered something that would upgrade the system as opposed to
upgrade the BVAS.
Upgrade the entire, whatever problem it is that they were trying to hinge on the PVC and the BVAS. They will have come up with a solution that will fine-tune and upgrade that process as opposed to, some people will quarrel that why would you say passport and birth certificate and NIN is a step down, but we know that there are issues in some of these recommended.
Are those a step down?
That's what I'm saying.
The passports.
Some people would argue and say it's not, but first and foremost, how many Nigerian has international passport? And if you say NIN, we're on this a conversation where people's NIN and their NIN details are being manipulated. How is that a better solution? Why not enhance the technology such that it can accommodate for whatever the PVC was designed to do? Because it was PVC and BVAS were part of the things that were supposed to facilitate electronic transmission of results. So, let's take a break. We'll be back.
Hello, Port Harcourt. Hello, Abuja. This is Kids FM, the family fun radio. Kids FM is packed with exciting drama, engaging games, inspiring stories, great music, and the kind of conversations that bring families even closer. From sunrise to sunset, we've got something special for everyone in the family. Kids FM is fun for children, cool for teens, and just perfect for parents. It's more than radio.
It's packed with educational content such as language shows, quizzes, storytelling, fun facts, and many more.
It's a family experience you can count on every single day. So, wherever you are, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, or anywhere around the world, you can tune in live on 101.7 Kids FM or stream online at kidsfm.ng. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at kids.fm.ng for all the fun updates, giveaways, and behind-the-scene moments. Kids FM. FM. Let's play. Welcome back to your number one talk news and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
This is Hard Facts.
Hard facts.
Hard Facts.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info.
All right, it's still Hard Facts here on your number one talk station, 95.1 Nigeria Info. Somi is here, and Radio's Finest alongside with me. And we're just getting into the meat of the first story, the one where lawmakers are proposing to step down the use of PVC and introduce other alternatives, such as the national identification number, Nigerian passport, or birth certificate, as acceptable means of identification for voters. Some of the things that they also said was that every registered voter should be able to download, or will be able to download, if this goes into effect, will be able to download and print their voter's card whenever needed, totally eradicating the issue of buying and selling PVCs, likewise all related offences. And this, they said, is a reflection in Section 18, Section 47, and the deletion of Section 22 of the Electoral Act 2022. And what is supposed to accommodate some of these introductions now that they're talking about is the proposed Electoral Act 2025. And just like I was saying, they mentioned a key issue with the PVC and why they were recommending that it was stepped down. They said the bimodal voter accreditation system does not recognize the microchip in the PVC. And the first thought that came to my head, Gabriel, was this is really simple.
Yeah.
Upgrade the technology so that
Yeah.
you can recognize the chip.
Yeah.
If really and truly that was the major bone of contention.
Right.
As opposed to doing away completely with the PVC, or saying, okay, you can use it or you don't have to use it, come see, come sa kind of thing, and then introducing things like NIN and all of that. And NIMC, to an extent, has been, doing some great work, but there have been complaints in recent times that, data from the back end of NIMC has been tampered with.
Yeah.
And so people are being made to pay to change what they had recorded initially as correct information, recognized. They've even gone ahead to use these national identification cards. I just brought that up to expose that there is such a huge risk that can be associated with the use of the NIN, as opposed to a PVC that is controlled by INEC. They've taken so much time and all of that to register people. I think they had figures about 7.4 million newly registered voters as at when the registration exercise closed, going into the next election. And then to just say, let that, put that away, come on, what is that, and then say NIN, birth certificate and the likes. I mean, even the birth certificate, Seth, is very, very...
I don't have a birth certificate.
What?
I don't. I was
How are you
probably
functioning in this country without one? I'm confused.
There are affidavits. I mean, but that is the case of many people. I mean, many people at some point in time or the other, get to lose certain documents where you cannot retrieve anymore. You can perhaps go have a reprint or something. I mean, I know the hospital I was born at. I'm just saying that this is not something peculiar to just me. It's not a unique situation. Many people do not have so many certificates. Talk about me. I've not been internally displaced before, but there's so many people whose homes have been burnt. There's so many people who have been ransacked. Their homes have been ransacked by bandits, by kidnappers or whatever. So losing a document is not peculiar to me. But I just said that to say that.
For those who don't have it.
For those who don't have it. But that's just, there are other documents that are also proposed as alternatives, such as NIN.
NIN, passport, and birth certificate.
My point is, I am all up for whatever it is that will make election process fairer, more transparent in the country. Anything that will make it work, anything that will make it better, anything that will give us a better outcome, not outcome in terms of who wins the election, but trust in the process, where people's confidence in, more like what we had in 1993, where election held and people were confident that it was a general consensus that what the outcome was is the will of the people. Since then, till now, I don't think we've had a single election where it was not keenly debated as whether the outcome was indeed fair or not.
Maybe some more than others, but to some extent.
We've not had something close to 1993. That's what I'm trying to say.
I see.
Exactly. So my point is, anything that would help us arrive at something better, where we do not even have as much litigation process, election matters tribunal, and there's that general moody environment across the country after every general election.
Let's cut to the chase. Do you think that these alternatives would make the process, everything that you're asking? Do you think they will?
I am thinking about it, even though I already see some loopholes. You see, the thing is that they say something in Yoruba language that you pray against people that are watching you that you're not watching, right? There are so many people, the people who really want to circumvent the process, they are very smart. They're already looking at whatever it is you're proposing and looking at ways. I do not seek to circumvent any process, but I'm already looking at some loopholes in these. For example, now we're looking at other forms of identification for a voter, such as NIN. The current process restricts you to a particular geopolitical zone or a particular area. If you register in Abuja here, you cannot travel to Lagos to vote. You have to vote in Abuja. If you register in your hometown, you cannot vote in Abuja. You have to go back to your hometown to vote, because it would not accredit you as a voter in your hometown. Let's say Abeokuta North, for example. If I registered in Abeokuta North, I cannot come to Abuja here and want to go to Gariki to vote. I have to go back to Abeokuta North to cast my vote, because that is where I registered. Now, if you're using the NIN, how do you then restrict? How do you make sure that you're not having people vote just about anywhere? Now, I know there is an argument that people should be able to vote wherever it is they are. But how then do we curb manipulation? How do we curb impersonation? How do we curb people using people's data to vote from anywhere? Because these are some of the issues that we are currently facing with the current system.
The current system, what being PVC under the INEC?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Again, they say we can, PVC are usually bought. Anybody can buy NIN. It is a human being that owns it. Anybody can buy it. Now, I'm not giving it all knocks. I'm not saying this cannot work.
What is the good side to this argument?
They're positives.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
They're positive.
Okay,
positive,
to the use of NIN,
yeah,
birth certificate.
Positive being that it would drastically improve the number of persons that are eligible to vote. Drastically. The last time, I can't remember the exact percentage, but the percentage of persons eligible to vote in the voting age or bracket that is 18 and above is still not up to 70 to 80%. The number of persons currently...
What makes them ineligible?
No. What I'm saying is this.
Is it the PVC that makes them ineligible? Because that is what the lawmakers were pushing for here. So
my point is this.
Okay.
Let's say we have people eligible to vote, 18 and above, 1,000 in Nigeria, for example. The people that have PVC right now are not up to 700.
Is that because they are ineligible to get the PVC? Or is it because they didn't follow through the process? Or is it a failure on the part of INEC?
Multiple reasons.
No, let's iron out the issues very, very well, because the goal of this entire thing that they are pushing for is, look, this is one of the amendments that we are suggesting for the Electoral Act 2025. And my concern when I saw things like the alternatives that they talked about was you'll be trying to stop one problem while creating multiple others. If the alternatives here, we already know, are subject to lots of, let me use the word you use, loopholes. You're already seeing loopholes in it. And so if you're seeing loopholes in it, are you still for it? Because what I see with the problem with the PVCs is or are, if I go by the different things they highlighted here, one of them being the fact that BVAS didn't recognize the chip in the PVC. I think that's a simple thing. Hasn't INEC been funded going into 2027? Is that one of the things that they could consider an upgrade to a system that they just recently introduced that, yes, had some teething problems, but could be made better as opposed to throwing away the entire thing out? The second thing that was made mention of here by the lawmakers, they said many eligible voters could not collect their PVCs due to administrative bottlenecks, long queues, and misplaced cards. Where does the fault of that lie? Is it not with the INEC, the same INEC that has been funded? It's not a thing of the people. So if you say that you've recognized some failings with the BVAS PVC system, are these things that can be corrected now? Do we need to go into the Electoral Act and present this alternative that in and of themselves can be problematic as well? Do you get where I'm going with this?
Absolutely, Somi.
I see you trying to balance it out and play nice and be like, oh, yes, I'm all for what is good, but what can be fair, and by your explanation, what can possibly increase the number of eligible voters.
Remember where I started from,
will it be creating another problem?
There is absolutely nothing. Remember where I started from? I started by saying I'm all up for anything that would make us better, that would make election process better in the country. That's why I started. I also mentioned that people who want to circumvent, they are thinking at a smarter level than an ordinary person because they want to cheat the process. So I have just looked at this at a surface level. I'm sure if I sit in terms of research, I'll find much more. But I'm very sure that there are going to be other problems that can arise from this. So I said all to say that we're saying the same thing, all right? I'm just saying anything that will make us better. However, I totally agree with you in the sense that we have a very peculiar problem in this country. We do not utilize a particular item, a particular thing to the fullest. We do not explore all possible options on a particular matter before throwing out of the window and going for a brand new, just so that it looks like we're doing something. We are moving. You can be busy but not making progress. That's what I see us do most times. We have not carefully. For example, why is the BVAS not recognizing the chip on the PVC? If it begins to recognize the chip on the PVC, how effective would that be? How would that make us or improve the electoral process? That's some of the things that we need to be asking. So I agree with you in the sense that why are we looking for brand new solutions that can even create more problems of their own when we can look at improving what we already have? The IRF portal was a very beautiful idea. As the collation is done, it has been uploaded on the portal and we can see it real time. That was the idea behind the IRF portal. And it worked for the National Assembly elections. We were seeing it like this, koro. But it became the one that is most important to every Nigerian. There was problem. So what can we do about the IRF portal? How can we make it better? So these are some of the things I believe that we should be asking, including the lawmaker. And that is why it is out there. We're talking about it so we can engage with the lawmakers. CSOs can engage with lawmakers. Those who are close to them, even as they listen to a show like this, they can hear what Nigerians are saying. I'm like, it's not just ditching the old ways and looking for a brand new approach when that one too can be problematic, like you said. So I think we're saying the same thing.
Well, the good thing I think is that there was high-level engagement at this session that was had yesterday. We've only mentioned one of the things that was proposed. We're going to come to the CSO end of it and what a lot of people have been pushing for electoral reforms, had to say about it. And I'm talking not from the government end, but let's also look at what the National Assembly had proposed as well to be amended and to reflect in the 2025 Electoral Act. They're proposing an amendment to provide for the conduct of presidential and governorship elections 6 months before the expiration of the tenure of incumbents across the country. The amendment proposal was contained in the reviewed highlights, again, of the amended Electoral Act obtained yesterday during the public hearing. This one Daily Trust reports. And it stipulates that elections into the offices of the president and governors will be conducted not later than 185 days before the expiration of a term of office of the last holder of the office. And what that would mean is that at the very least 6 months before 2027, they are proposing that 6 months before, yes, the estimated time for elections to hold, they're now going to have this election, which will mean, I think, sometime around November of 2026 is what they're proposing that this will happen. And they add that where a vacancy occurs in any of, according to the draft, rather, the provision also extends to elections to National Assembly and State House of Assembly, which they say will also be held not later than 185 days before the date on which each of the houses stands dissolved. And they add that where a vacancy occurs in any of the houses more than 90 days before the general election, such vacancy must be filled within 30 days of its occurrence. The amendment also seeks to align the new electoral calendar with constitutional changes to Section 76, 116, 132, and 178, which now delegate election timelines to the Electoral Act rather than the Constitution. Of course, you can expect that there were quite a number of reactions to this, as that when this became public, for example, the executive director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, Awal Musarraf Sanjani, criticized the proposal to hold the election 6 months before, describing it as unnecessary and potentially counterproductive. One of the concerns that he raised was that it could now undermine the integrity of the process, allowing incumbents to use the extended transition period to frustrate their successors. A valid concern, if you ask me.
I do not like this one. This one, I'm going to be straight up. I do not like conducting election 6 months before the expiration of a particular. This one, I do not. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't think it should sit well with any Nigerian. Why? The biggest pro to this one would be that there's enough time for litigation, such that the new administration can then get into office and run without any distractions of legal matters, because the election tribunal is looking into the election and the entire thing. It's a huge concern, to be very frank, because the first 100 days, the presidency or the new administration is juggling both, getting into office, particularly if it's a brand new one and it's not a returning president, it's a brand new administration. You're juggling both legal matters with getting your cabinet, that affected the former President Muhammadu Buhari, where we know for several months he didn't even have a cabinet. So there's that.
But that was of his own doing, really.
Well, yeah. Some people attributed it to the legal matters, the legal talks, and all. People respond to issues differently. But my point here is this. Sometimes you need to weigh cons and pro. Sometimes pro can be heavier than con. Con can be heavier than pro. We have him managing with litigation into an administration. We have him managing. We have him coping with it. When we now bring a brand new idea that 6 months before the expiration of an administration, hold elections, do you know what 6 months is? I'm sure you do, but a lot can happen within 6 months. 6 months that is half a year. 6 months is a lot of time for anything to happen. President-elect can pass on. Virtually anything can happen. I do not want to find out. So the one we are doing now, I think is okay. It is not everything that we try to work, fix. Some of them, I think, it is just how do we work around it? How do we ensure if we have a fairer, a more transparent electoral process, we would have less litigation. We would have less issues at the election tribunal. So let's work on making the process more transparent, where Nigerians can be confident and say, okay, even, there's a way that it's going to be the voice of majority, that even you, who is the voice of minority, opposing, you look stupid. It will be clear that you're being problematic. You're being a difficult person. So let's work on making all our attention right now should be poured on making the electoral process more transparent, fairer than looking at making conducting election 6 months before. I don't want to find out. 6 months is a lot of time for anything to happen. So let's just leave it like this. It's not even worse if it is the opposing party that won the election. Problem. Just imagine that the presidential election is the opposing party that won it, like the way we had in 2015. Serious problem. We do not even want to find out, people.
Okay, like I said, it wasn't just the government at the table. CSOs were also there. As a matter of fact, as far back as 30th of September, a coalition of civil society organizations had submitted a report asking the National Assembly to make electronic transmission of election results mandatory, as they believe that, of course, public confidence in the electoral process will be increased if they were able to do this. They said credible elections are an irreplaceable component and a significant characteristic of healthy democracy. And so this is such a key thing to ensure that they make sure it happens. The National Assembly, State House of Assembly, and the President, they said, should pass and sign into law constitutional alteration bills with reform proposals that will improve credibility and build citizens' trust in the electoral process, especially amendment of the Constitution to transfer the President's power. This is another key one that they talked about. To transfer the President's power to appoint the INEC chairman from the President to an independent and non-partisan committee. This was one of the recommendations put forward, apart from the call to ensure that electronic transmission of results was compulsory. They demanded an amendment of the Constitution to allow independent candidacy also, noting that it will make the electoral process more inclusive. I believe this also made its way into the proposed Electoral Amendment Bill 2025. We'll get to that as well. Right. So, of course, they talked about transfer of responsibility. That's when you also this now, apart from the president not being able to appoint an INEC chairman, they called for the removal of sections that empower the Independent National Electoral Commission to register and regulate political parties. And they asked that these sections be removed, and they recommend the transfer of that responsibility to a new political party registration and regulatory commission to be established by the National Assembly. They had a lot of things to say, and some of them, like I said, made it into the proposed, what they call it now, proposed bill for Electoral Amendment 2025, and we'll be getting to that in a little bit. But just to show that, CSOs and other representatives of the people were not quiet. They have been working on the sidelines, right? And then moving in, not just for electoral reform and amendments to the Act, but also as far as the Constitution is concerned. So this one, we're looking very closely at it.
I believe there are some critical reforms that are needed. Those ones are more expedient than the ones that we are even currently talking about. For example, appointment of INEC chairman. For example, I would even suggest that the National Council of State its members are former presidents of the country. The president is the chairman. The vice president is the deputy chairman. All former presidents of the federation and all former heads of the government of federation. All former chief justices of the country. The president of the Senate. The speaker of the House of Representatives. All the governors of the state. That's talking about the National Council of States, NCS. That kind of a council is one where if there is, maybe if we take away the governors, if electing an INEC chairman, appointing rather an INEC chairman, or the recommendation comes from that council and not just left to the president.
You are aware that they are in the process currently?
I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm just saying, right now, the statutory responsibility of appointing or nominating an INEC chairman doesn't fall on this kind of council, for example. But this is about the highest council we have in the country, one that involves former presidents, former heads of state. That's a very powerful council. So if Nigerians can see that the appointment, the nomination of INEC chairman comes from that kind of council, that's going to improve confidence.
Maybe we need to check the process again. So what you're suggesting now, because the way
It's
I
just a
know that it
suggestion.
works, yes,
Yeah.
I know. The way I know that it works, I said maybe we need to look at the process again. Because the way I know it works is that the president does receive nominations, and then he decides, route it through the Council of State, who sort of nods in approval, and then they send it to, I think even as of today, I believe the president was already recommending or asking, I don't know what to call it again, the National Assembly to approve his nomination of Mr. Mupiton. So are you saying that the Council of State should nominate, and then if they nominate, where do they send their nominations to? The National Assembly? What are you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to work.
Okay.
I'm just saying, right now, the statutory responsibility falls on the president,
And it
and it's just a suggestion. It could be any other committee, anyone that has a number of persons that we cannot say they belong to a particular divide. That's what I'm trying to say here. It could be another committee, really. I'm just saying anything that can make it fairer. The president not being the person statutorily responsible for appointing or nominating the INEC chairman is one crucial way we can get started.
Which is basically what the CSOs are asking.
Exactly.
For, yeah.
Also, independent candidacy.
Okay.
That is another. See, this one, independent candidacy, Somi, it is more important. As important as we are having conversation around BVAS, whatnot, is another critical issue. One of the biggest goals under former President Muhammadu Buhari was when the Not Too Young to Run bill, where younger persons can run for office. That was very crucial. But you see, if we can get in independent candidacy, oh my God. You see, I know there are pros, there are cons against it, but that one crucial is very... I cannot begin to state how important that will go for us. Because for first, it will just cut away godfatherism. If independent candidates can run, then you are not bound by the shackles of a political party. I know there are cons around it, that people have made arguments against it. But again, sometimes not everything will be either good or bad. There are going to be sides, both sides to a particular issue. So it's now left for you to weigh which one is more. The pros, do they outweigh the cons, or the cons outweigh the pro? And I think for me, independent candidacy, there are more pros than cons. As far as in the context of Nigeria right now, there are more pros than cons.
Okay. We are going to take a break shortly, and then when we come back, we'll definitely be opening up the phone lines, and I'll also highlight some other things that were proposed in the Electoral Bill of 2025. We just mentioned some of them as for, especially the ones that the lawmakers were pushing for, which is the PVCs, alternatives, and then also the case of having elections hold earlier. We'll come back to all of that after this time out. To stay with us. was also part of the recommendations. The introduction of digital voter identification through electronically generated voter cards with QR codes, and tougher sanctions for electoral offences, including mandatory prison terms for falsifying results or obstructing election officials. Those were definitely some of the proposals made. Other provisions include expanded delegate framework for indirect primaries to standardize internal party representation, mandatory financial audits for INEC within 6 months of each financial year to promote transparency, and higher campaign spending and donation limits to reflect current economic realities. The draft also provides for early voting for Nigerians whose official duties prevent them from voting on election day. Brilliant one, seeing as we're usually affected by that. Section 44(1) of the proposed act stipulates that a date shall be set aside for early voting not later than 14 days before the main election. Security personnel, accredited journalists, INEC officials, domestic observers, and ad hoc staff are among those eligible for early voting. And also, in line with an existing court judgment mandating INEC to make provisions for prison voting, the bill further states that inmates shall be regarded as ordinary residents of the place where they are lawfully imprisoned or detained. So indeed, it's not all doom and gloom. We started with those stories, but there's also been other really, really great proposals put forward, but we're waiting to see what that will come to. But before we open up the phone lines and get your thoughts on it, let's take the final story. Gabriel, I remember trying to have this conversation. I'm like, Gabriel, how far should we bring this up? And it's like, oh no, this was spoken about yesterday. It just seems like one of the biggest things, and so we cannot but bring it back, especially considering how pertinent some of the matters are. We're talking about outrage and questions that have come about since the president's clemency and pardon list came out. 175 names were 175 people were pardoned, some posthumously, and the likes. But one of the biggest issues raised is, as far as Nigeria's anti-narcotics war, the clemency does seem to make a mockery of what we're doing in terms of anti-narcotics, given that a large portion of those who were granted clemency were people who had been put away for drug-related offenses. And so we're looking at lots of people, reacting. And then, of course, for the drug agencies themselves, observers say the pardons may send conflicting signals to Nigeria's anti-narcotics agencies, especially the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, which has in recent years ramped up its campaigns against drug trafficking and abuse. I think I saw an infographic somewhere that showed what it looked like, just a summary look at the people who were granted pardons and clemencies, and it really was indeed quite alarming. Drug-related offences, it said 40% of the people granted pardons were for drug-related offences. Illegal mining offences took a 34% chunk out of that. Then financial and white-collar crimes had 17% of the total 175 people. Violent and capital offences had 14%. Property hijacking / maritime offences had 10%. Arms-related offences 6%. Human trafficking exploitation had 4% of that list. So indeed, it does raise a lot of questions as to what the body language of this government is, just looking at the pardons and the clemency granted.
Yeah, this is a very, very crucial issue, and I think it is one that the biggest reason why this is a problem is because all these different sectors affected, capital murder, or we talk about drug trafficking, human trafficking, misappropriation of funds. In all of these issues, the biggest reason why it is a problem is because there is a weakness in our judicial system, where many people who should have been put behind bars are roaming the streets free. So when we are dealing with, it's not like there's been a major clampdown and we have a healthy environment. I mean, drug trafficking is all over the place. The FCC itself, the NDLE, I beg to say, has even become, alleged of compromise in the entire issue of drug trafficking. So when we are dealing with this issue, and there's not been any concerted effort to change the tide, to make it better, to improve the situation, to clean our streets, to help our children, our young ones who are hooked on different substances from all manner, different ones. We don't. It's not that I hear some names these days, and I'm wondering, when did this one start again? Then they're different from the ones that we used to know back then. You would think that cocaine is the baddest of them all, but no, there are some who are more dangerous substances than cocaine. So when we have, and this is exactly where people who are criticizing the pardon, this is where they're coming from. We have a system, a country that is struggling with, demand and supply of hard drugs, of drug use. If there is no demand, there is no supply. If there's no supply, there is no demand. So both users and sellers, everybody, there's a serious problem here where we are struggling with it, and then pardon is being granted to some people. It's a counterproductive move, and it sends a wrong signal to everybody watching. So it means that you can lobby the president, you can talk to the president, and you can get off the hook. Indeed, it's not a very good one, to be very honest. People who are making complaints, CSOs and different organizations that are bitter about this development, you cannot blame them, because really, we've not done anything, or we haven't done much on a national scale to address the issue of drugs floating in our streets. Just go to an average slum in any part of the country, including the nation's capital. The other day, I was at GSM Village at Zone 1. I don't know if you've ever been to that compound at the back before, but just go there. Don't ask me what I went to do there, please, but I don't do drugs.
There's a compound at the back?
Yes, there is.
I know a number of compounds are there, so which compound specifically?
There's a compound at the back. Okay. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
But if you just take a stroll in there, you just might get accosted. Alpha bros, you won't buy.
Well, I mean, you're talking about some place like that. There are some other,
and this is just at our backyard.
There's some other nondescript places. I remember when I was a driver, when I used to do one of those e-hailing things. I remember, unfortunately, that was my first time, and I was shook. I literally a ride was ordered, and I picked up these two young kids, and they were going somewhere and said, "Oh, just stop somewhere here." And I can promise you, if anybody had told me that such a thing was happening in that place, I would never have believed them, because it was right next to a church, literally right next to a church. So it was really scary. But in terms of some data, 2018 NBS survey estimated that 14.4% of Nigerians aged 15 to 64, which accounts for about 14.3 million people at the time, had used psychoactive substances, and this doubles the global average. NDLEA also said drug-linked crimes, including terrorism and kidnapping, had surged as traffickers used drug proceeds to fund violence, clearly. And between 2021 and 2024, the NDLEA was said to have seized over 9 million kilograms of hard drugs, with about over 57,000 suspects being arrested during the same period. And they also recorded over 10,000 convictions within the period under review. And we're looking at, in 2024 alone, the agency was said to have secured over 3,000 convictions, counseled and rehabilitated 8,129 persons, provided 1.8 million people with public enlightenment, and conducted over 3,800 lectures in schools. All of this to ward off against the rising surge of drug use and trafficking, which we are said to have witnessed a really high number of in the past decade. And so these are some of the concerns. It's like setting a bad example, sort of, with the number of people who were granted pardons for this. But let's open up the phone lines and get your thoughts on the three stories shared so far. It's 0700951 0000 009 597 4869 and on WhatsApp 009 993 0137. Hello. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Adela Victor from Busalaji.
Go ahead, sir.
You see, what millions of Nigerians want is that they want an electoral system that will give them credible election in the next election. So, I know the present administration, left to them, they like this system of grant because this system will give them the upper hand. But opposition and millions of Nigerians who are being shortchanged and oppressed want electoral reform. So let them put in place electoral reform that will give us credible election in the next election. Then as for the pardon, you see, I know the family of those people affected, oppressed, or maybe their family who have lost their loved ones, will not like this pardon. Why the family of those pardons will like it? So I think the committee that recommended this pardon, maybe they didn't do a good job to me, because there are some people who are supposed not to be released. They're supposed to go to be again, to serve as deterrent. Because other people will learn. Other people now who are outside now believe that if they commit crime, at the end of the day, they will pardon. So to me, there are a lot of things, shady things that happened.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Gabriel.
Yeah. Hello, Gerald. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Gabriel.
Good afternoon, Gerald.
My brother, how are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you.
Somi, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gerald. Welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you. My name is Gerald.
Yeah, go ahead.
Glad to be here. Okay, thank you for you both making us not to miss Kim too much. At this rate, very soon, I'll go and look for her and say, see you, we don't miss you.
That's not true.
Well done. Well, keep patronizing us.
Go ahead, sir.
It's not patronage. Okay, so quick one. Electoral reforms, very necessary. Election being a human process is dynamic. Just as human beings are dynamic, every day novelties emerge.
Yeah.
New happenstances that were initially unanticipated, unenvisaged, they come up.
True.
Therefore, reforms must remain a continuum. So to look for that perfect electoral system, dear Nigerians, is to look for a perfect human being. And we all know none exist on this side, of God's green earth. Now, having said this, go check those that are our example, that taught us this democracy that we are copying from America. Look at the last set of elections. It's riddled with complaints, accusations, and of malpractices and all that. It tells us that there is nobody you choose as INEC chairman. There is no legal reform you carry out to a way to throw up an INEC chairman that will bring El Dorado. Let me say this quickly. As important as reforms, legal reforms, procedural reforms are, the greatest reform that will lead us closest to something most acceptable is the reform of the average Nigerian. And I'm not preaching. I've forgotten the name of the African country. I think it's in East Africa. If I type it on my Google now, it will flank. I was told that ordinary people and staff of their electoral commission were carrying the so-called sensitive materials on bicycles to access local area, rural villages, unmotorable paths. And when the electorate, the voters see them, they wave at them, they are happy with them, they encourage them, and these things are delivered seamlessly. The people cooperate.
Okay.
But in Nigeria, guess what? We need soldiers. We need police. Why? Because the ordinary Nigerian that will later complain can be compromised and he will attack those carrying sensitive materials.
That was Kenya. That is Kenya.
Kenya, God bless you. And even at that Kenya, thank you. Gabriel, you were saying how the INEC chairman should be thrown up, whether the present status quo is correct, whether it should be with civil society or with ordinary folks. I hear that in Kenya, political parties are represented in choosing their umpire, electoral umpire.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Other stakeholders. But I ask the question, how far with the Kenyan elections?
Okay.
People die like they die in Nigeria. It is contested to high heavens at the Supreme Court. Odinga or the other person will say it's unfortunate. He cries,
All right,
you know. So I end by simply saying, unless we all reform ourselves as individuals, the political actors, the politicians, the political parties, and the citizen voters, unless we change, then let's keep looking at the man in the mirror instead of pointing at accusing fingers at OBJ.
Okay.
You know?
All right. Thank you, Gerald. We need to take some more calls.
Hello.
Hello, Gabriel. Somi Gabriel from Gwagwalada.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. If the intention is not manipulative, it does not keep a technology to conduct free and fair election. It has happened. It was conducted in 2015, which produced the late President Buhari, when a credible electoral system was put in place. So if their intention is not manipulative, whereby they will say in paper they will come with a genuine blueprint, but on the day of the election they will not implement it. They will not implement it. That is our problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Abubakar. Your network wasn't so great there. Let's look at some messages very quickly. This one, no name or place, says, I hope we're not just arguing for the sake of argument. We shouldn't condemn everything the government is doing just because we don't trust them. Stepping down the PVC is a step up, as we have always asked that we should synchronize all our data in terms of our population. If that proposal goes through, it is an improvement to our national data, and everyone becomes included in the voting system. When you say upgrade the system to accommodate the chip in voters' card, you don't want to know what that will involve and then complain when it's being implemented. Then another option suggests they will identify each voter and their age if it was correct in the first place. Okay, I hear you. This one here, oh dear, my system. Good afternoon, Somi and Gaby. Concerning prevention of multiple voting and fraud, INEC can obtain the same technology that the banks use, such that once you have voted, you will not be able to vote anywhere else. If you withdraw all the money in your account in an ATM machine, if you go to another ATM machine to withdraw it, it will show you insufficient funds. Shikena, Dr. Alex from Gariki. And
perhaps link it to the BVN, maybe?
I mean, I'm all for synchronizing all our data, honestly.
We should. We're long overdue for that
I'm all for doing that. But if I think that would be a thing to go for, synchronization, as opposed to saying you have this PVC separate, you have this here, you have this here, you have this here going into the elections. Neme from Asokore says it's certain National Assembly members have realized that many of their members were voted out because Beavers worked substantially and are now trying to introduce avenues for rigging. I see the hand of Esau and the voice of Jacob in this new proposal. Who has the authority to verify if the birth certificates to be presented were issued by NPC? Knowing the terrain and political disposition in the North, what stops a politician that wants to rig to print out fake birth certificates or computer voter slip for underage children or people who didn't register at all to come to the polling unit and want to vote? Nigeria, I can see we don't want to move forward at all. The PVC must be made to work on the Beavers, as without this, We are back in 2015 election era where multiple voting instruments, PVC and TVC, were used, thereby giving rise to multiple voting.
Very true.
Let's take this call very quickly.
Hello?
You have a minute, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Somi.
Good to have you here, sir.
Good evening, Sector. My name is Michael Wind Blows.
All right, welcome.
You see all this analysis we've been making about this PVC or no PVC or everything. These people know what they are doing. I've been saying here that we don't even need to register before we can vote. If we have had our NIN registration, we don't need another form of registration. All we need is just accreditation on election, just accreditation. Now, can I ask you, Somi, or can I bring something to our notice here, Somi, and the respecter?
Please, in 30 seconds.
How come we do registration electronically, both NIN, BVN, PVC, accredited, BVAS, all electronically, but the real voting, we went back to analog and cast vote on in paper and ink. How does anybody think they can transmit that electronically? You get my point?
Valid question. Yes, we get you. Can you wrap up now?
So all this is they're talking about, when they are ready, we know what to do. Like the fraudulent means, the fraudulent process, which our most honest commander-in-chief confessed during inauguration, Musa Radua, some of us know it. And as this government is doing, we go expose the fraudulent process they are using to get into our public space, either appointed and elective. We'll go expose them very soon.
All right,
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Mike, where wind blows. This is one for you very quickly. The Queen had written in to say, in the issue of stepping down PVC, I think Mike, when wind blows, has been hammering on this using NIN. I wish you were listening so that I can throw more light on this. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back.